virtual event Herf. Today we are joined by Fred Rewey from Nomad Cigars. He is from the Big Smoke in Vegas. Hey, Fred.
How you doing?
Good. And when you see Fred on, well, first off, thanks for the time. But we were talking before, we were sort of ironing out technology and stuff, that when you see Fred, he has the fireplace in the background. So this is the Fred Rewey Nomad fireside chat.
Yeah, this is the special holiday edition. My room apparently has a fireplace, which is really cool. So I turned it on, even though it's really not worthy of temperature-wise to put on a fire. But I don't think it puts off a lot of heat. But it kind of feels very holiday-like for me. So this is actually the last road trip I have for the year. I go to Nicaragua for 7 weeks coming up here. So yeah, I'm in Vegas for the Big Smoke, for Cigar Aficionado's Big Smoke, and taking a break. Glad to be on the show, and glad to kind of film this holiday special, all the way, around the world. So that basically, I feel like I'm doing like the New Year's Eve thing, where like we're watching the ball drop over there, but then we'll slowly work across the time zones. So this is kind of cool.
That's right. You're like those. You're like when they, show the ball in Sydney and then they shoot over to New York and then they're off to Tokyo.
That's right.
And so before we get too much into it, I want to let new people know how they can get involved. There's a couple ways. So if you go onto the Cigar Federation page, which I'm going to take a look at right now. If you go to the Sig Fed page and you go to events, if you go to shows, you can go to shows, find the virtual event Herf, scroll down, and there'll be a link that says click here when the virtual event Herf is live, which it is live now. So you go to the events tab on the Cigar Federation page, click on virtual event Herf. You'll scroll down to Fred's Herf, and there's a link that says click here. Click on that and you can join in. Also, if you're having trouble, which last time I think a couple people had some trouble with tablets, I think, you can you can send me a note in the chat at Cigar Federation, which I'm going to look at the chat room right now, see what's on there. You can send a shot there. Oh, and Harley Holmes asks if you're going to be on the virtual event Herf tonight. Yes, Harley, he's on right now.
I am not.
So
I'm not going to be on it. So, oh wait, I am.
So if you are having trouble with the link, or for whatever reason having trouble with the Sig Fed page, with the virtual event Herf, you could send me a note on the chat and I'll send you a link. And if you're having trouble with all of those, or you don't want to jump on, you can send a question through the chat and I'll ask it to Fred, and Fred will let you know what he thinks. And we got Bob Dog on. Bob Dog is on.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, Fred.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How you guys doing?
Hey, Bob.
Good.
We're just getting ready for Fred's fireside chat.
Yeah, welcome to the holiday special with the fireside chat. There you go.
Oh, isn't that special?
Yeah.
Is that a suite? Are you in a suite?
Sure.
Presidential suite?
I mean, it's the.
Well, you are in Vegas, right?
I am in Vegas. So this is Uncle Lucky's youth hostel. Seems very nice.
Oh.
No, I don't know where I.
Well, let's see. Uncle Lucky's youth hostel in Las Vegas is one thing. If it was Uncle Lucky's youth hostel in Texas,
yeah, that could be a little sketch.
So to start us off, Fred, can you just give? We talked a little bit about it before you came on, but can you give us a little idea, like what the Big Smoke's like, sort of what your experience has been over the last day or so, how you're finding it? Just give us a little bit of a description of.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, I know that there's so many events you can go to that are multi-vendor events, and so this is in Vegas right now. There's another one they do in New York, but basically attendees buy a ticket and they get into the event, and so they can buy, depending on what size ticket, they can come to both nights, which are identical. They can come to the seminars. A lot of guys just buy one night to come in. Basically, the doors open at 6:30. They basically they can get you know, a bunch of cigars. So there's several cigar manufacturers there. Many of the cigar makers are there in person. You get a coupon book. You pick them up. There's like a ton of food and alcohol in there. So it's just a big smoking party for about 3 hours. And then everybody hits, like, you know, the rum bar. It's at the Mirage this year, so, you know, they hit the rum bar afterwards or something like that. But everybody's here all weekend. I was just at a CRA party today that had an 80s band playing that was surprisingly very good. So it's an interesting event. You know, consumers don't really have a chance to, you know, too many opportunities to mix with multi, you know, vendor scenarios where they get to meet them, talk to them. It's a very fast pace, you know, as far as that. But like I said, a lot of food, a lot of alcohol, a lot of cigars. So, you know, what could be bad with that?
No, nothing. It sounds fantastic. I mean, for you as a manufacturer, do you get a chance to connect with other people? Is it a chance for you to connect with other people in the industry, or are you mainly kind of promoting Nomad at these events? Like, what do you get to do?
Yeah, this event, I don't do a booth here. So this is an event just for me to just kind of hang out and smoke cigars and see a lot of colleagues. And, you know, obviously, you know, everybody's very busy for that 3-hour window, but I get a chance to say hi to some people. You know, Alan Rubin's here, Alec Bradley. You've got Willie Herrera and JD are both here. Bill Paley, La Polina. So, you know, it's nice to see those guys and say hi and kind of, you know, after the main part of that's done, just kind of hang out and have some drinks or just kind of talk some industry shop talk. It's always nice to run into those people and kind of pick the brain and learn what's going on. And you know, CRA, Cigar Rights of America, is here in a very big presence, you know, really just trying to get everybody up to date on the FDA stuff and recruit members, which, you know, I encourage everybody to be a member of the CRA for what's an incredibly low dollar amount. But also, you know, every penny counts to kind of maintaining our rights as far as that's concerned.
No. Cool. Just so you, Bob Dog, know, I kind of put you on mute because there's a bit of background noise. So if you have a question or something, Bob Dog, just hit mute and you'll be able to hop back on. I was just getting some background noise from your end. But no, I mean, so you've had a busy year, Fred. You've had the SLE, lot 8613, which I'm smoking now, which is a great cigar, great body, a good salty sweetness to it. And you've had the Therapy series come out as well. Like, you've been a very busy man.
Yeah, I mean, it's the portfolio is finally the size that it needs to be, and I really have to decide what I want to do going forward. I mean, you know, when I first started, it was like I never would have imagined in this short of time that I'd have 8 full production blends out. And you know, I used to kind of laugh at people that had all these different blends coming out, but now I get it. Now, when you're in the thick of it and you're down there, like I said, I choose the end of the year predominantly for the big trip, which will be 7 weeks, and it's a little bit of relaxation, and it's a lot of blending for late 2016, 2017 cigars. But you know, you start, you know, as you get into it, you start coming up with these different blends. You're like, wow, I don't want to keep them for myself. I really want to release them. So you have to decide which ones to go with. Therapy was a fairly aggressive project because I wanted 3 blends, and I wanted them in a tray, and I wanted to skip having the boxes. You know, and there's a perception on trays sometimes, which I think is wrong. I mean, you know, obviously you have some more inexpensive, you know, tobaccos that go into some of those cigars. Not all of them, of course, but it just fundamentally makes sense. Whether you're in a, I'm not even talking about, you know, saving trees and stuff like that, which is certainly a consideration. But you know, boxes cost money, and you know, across the world for the most part, you know, box sales are down, stick sales are up, and that's because we like to enjoy a variety of cigars. I'm the same way. I don't smoke only one cigar. I don't only smoke my own portfolio. There's a lot of other cigars that I enjoy. So box sales are down, general stick sales are up. Well, the problem is if the guy's not buying the box and putting it home and putting the box in his humidor, you know, we all walk into a cigar shop and we see the stacks and stacks of empty boxes that they either give away for free or they charge $1 or $2 for them, whatever it is. But I was, you know, I'm looking at the dollars of that and trying to come down a little bit price without sacrificing any tobacco whatsoever, and play with vintage tobacco, play with high quality tobacco. And the next logical step, without making any sacrifices, was to really look at the packaging And I wouldn't say my packaging was ever, terribly expensive to begin with. I try to be very conscious of shelf space and things like that I got feedback from retailers. But, at the end of the day, you're talking 20 cents to 30 cents or even more depending on somebody's packaging out there. 20, 30 cents goes towards the stick even though you didn't buy the box. So, how could I shave off, a little bit of money, pass the savings on to the consumer and the retailer, and not sacrifice the cigar? So therapy was kind of my idea, and originally I wasn't really looking at doing another Connecticut. Originally I was thinking that, maybe I do 2 blends, but I thought, from a packaging standpoint and from a consumer ease standpoint, if I could do a mild, medium, full out of that, that would be the way to go. So I ended up with a Connecticut, a Habano, and the first Maduro I've ever released, which is a Pennsylvania broadleaf. And the Pennsylvania broadleaf has been selling absolutely amazing. I literally just finished out the 3rd production of that run since July. And actually, for the first time in Nomad's history, I actually ended up on a backorder situation, which I've never had. Yep, Bob's showing it off right there. So I try to keep at least 9 months of supply in the States, and I try to keep at least, an equal amount or more out of the country in the humidor, in the factories already ready to go, just not in the packaging. And I think it was about 45, 50 days into it, after the release of therapy, I had gone through about 75% of the therapy stock, predominantly the Maduro. So I had to have the other stuff shipped over, but then I had to vamp up production on the Maduro, which has done really, really well. It probably outsells the Connecticut and Habano 2 to 1. And I don't know if it's because it's the first Maduro I put out or because everybody was really happy with it. It's a beautiful leaf. The Pennsylvania broadleaf was outstanding in that blend. But, I didn't want the other 2 to be throwaways either, so I had to spend a lot of time on the Habano and, a lot of time on the Connecticut. And the Connecticut was interesting because I didn't want I'm really happy with the Connecticut Fuerte. That came out last year. I think that's an absolute stellar cigar. I got a lot of compliments from other people in the industry, despite what's been released since I did the Connecticut with a little bit more, and some other companies revisiting that. People still coming going, man, you've still got the best Connecticut, and obviously the sales reflect that, and the ratings reflect that. But I wasn't in a hurry to revisit a Connecticut, so I had to do something a little bit different. So we actually ended up with a San Andreas binder in the Connecticut to give it a little bit flavor, to keep it separate from my other Connecticut. I don't want any 2 cigars to be, dramatically similar. So the line was ambitious. It came together at the very, very end. Connecticut being the last one that I really wasn't sure was going to work or not. We had to lay it down. Once we laid it down, in the beginning I didn't think it was going to work, but once it laid down long enough, because I didn't really know how to age San Andreas binder against a Connecticut wrapper, but then it all worked out. So I was real happy with that. So it ended up 4 blends released this year. A lot of people say you had 2 releases, but the therapy counts as 3 blends. That was 3 totally new blends added to the line. They just happened to all be in the same tray.
No, it's interesting. And before I ask you something, I just want to know, Bob Dog, can you unmute yourself and let us know how your stick's going? Oh, I might have.
Nope, you're good. We can hear you. Nope, now we can't hear you.
You on there, Bob? Well, try and maybe Bob, if you. Let me see if I can just mute Bob. Because I was able to mute Bob, but I'm not able to unmute Bob, which is not good for Bob. We can't hear you, Bob. Can you just...
If you click on the screen, Bob, you should see like 5 icons at the top. There should be a microphone with a line through it. You might be able to like click that, or maybe on your avatar down at the bottom, maybe you can click on it there too.
Yeah, there should be a microphone with a line in it if you click that one. Or you can just hang up and then jump back on the Herf, and I will no longer mute you again.
Or just thumbs up, thumbs down. We can start with that. There we go. All right, we got thumbs up from Bob. We know we don't know the particulars yet, but we know he's okay with it. We could do like bad lip syncing, so Bob could actually start talking, and we could do bad lip syncing or something to it.
It's like a kung fu movie.
Yeah, he said something about squirrels and Lucky Charms, gummy bears, and yeah, I didn't get all of it. Maybe I lost something in transition. It's a little stuttery on Google. I don't know. It's okay.
Oh, he's got the okays time.
I think he said it's the best. I think he said it's the best Maduro he's ever had in his life. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. So there's no reason to unmute him at this point. He's calling all his friends. We have no idea. We're just totally making it up now.
No, but so Bob, if you can't find the mute, you can hang up and jump back on and jump in, and I just won't mute you. We'll just put up with the background noise. That's fine. So why don't you do that? You can jump off and jump back on the link and jump back in. That might be the easiest. Because we got Fred's fireside chat and fireside tech support.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm just gonna eject Bob Dog.
I have to make sure I don't keep my arm up though. You can't see the fire if I do that. So I gotta. There we go. Thank you for coming to the fireside chat. Okay.
So Bob Dog is ejected.
Gone.
So call back in Bob Dog. And then all of our tech is all of our tech issues should be sorted out. While we're waiting for Bob Dog to jump back on and get his thoughts, I think a lot of people do forget with you mentioned with the therapy that it's, even though it's one line, it's the 3 blends. How was it sort of working on those 3 and working towards like that releasing them all? Like how was that working on 3 blends as opposed to just one?
Well, you know, I mean, it wasn't as bad as I thought because you're constantly working on multiple blends anyway. Whether you think they're going to come to fruition or not just depends on how it all plays out and what's the right fit in the portfolio. But it really wasn't as challenging as I thought because those all start a year prior to release, so you're playing with different tobaccos. So I'd already had. Like I said, with the exception of the Connecticut, I'd already had some stuff I'd already been playing with, particularly on the Pennsylvania broadleaf. So it wasn't as challenging as I thought. Now if you were to just say, okay, hey, you got to come up with one next month, and you didn't have all that time that you'd already been playing with different things, I think it would have been a lot more challenging. But it really just kind of all came together nicely.
Oh, you just froze up for a little bit there. You were sort of saying how. It wasn't as hard as you thought because you're usually working on blends, multiple blends.
You're working on multiple blends. So I mean, at any given time now, I've probably got a dozen different blends I'm playing with. Half of which will just never go anywhere. Just they never get to where you want, or you're just playing with tobacco in general. So and then you're always playing with some mild, mediums, and fulls. So it just kind of came together. The timing was right. It had already started in a year before that. I didn't have the idea to put them all 3 together until later, but it didn't matter. I was already playing with different blends. One of us is slowing down here. I can't hear.
You got that?
I got you back now.
The wonders of technology. It's
just
right. Fantastic.
Well, I mean, you got to think about how many miles away from each other are we right now? I mean, it is pretty amazing at the end of the day. It's 11 o'clock there. It's like 5:50, or it's 11:15 there in the morning. It's 5:15 in the evening here. So far tomorrow's working good for us. So I can look forward to a good tomorrow right now. Is that what the deal is? Because you're
Sunday. A little bit of rain in the morning.
Okay, all right.
A little bit of rain in the morning, but you'll be right.
Always freaks me out. Your day's like all done. I'm like, well, hey, they had a good day there, so I guess we're okay.
That's right. Well, it gives you time. So when when it's like the zombie apocalypse or something, you can sort of see how Australia goes, and you get a good like 13, 14 hours to sort of set yourself up.
Yeah, I'm hoping it happens there first. I mean, no offense, but that at least gives us a good heads up.
No, that's understandable. I appreciate it. I was going to ask as well. There's someone Harley on the. Let me just make sure I get this question right, because you don't want to get the question wrong. That's a bit rude. On the on the cigar. Oh, on the cigar Federation chat. Harley has jumped in and asked, "Are you gonna be coming out to the West Coast? Going to be doing a West Coast swing in the near future?"
Yeah, it's on my agenda for next year. You know, everything, I really started East Coast and started kind of working slowly towards the West. The West is its own animal as far as, you know, how far you have to go for shops. You know, and honestly, the tax structure. You know, they pay very high tax in a lot of those states. So, you know, they want a proven brand before they start putting stuff on the shelves, despite what they're seeing on the ratings, despite what they're seeing on other things. So, you know, Texas was a big priority for me this year, which did really, really well. We're real close to 300 stores at this point. So I think that, you know, going on the fourth year at this point, I think that we've kind of proven that we're not, you know, we're not overnight. You know, I didn't do one blend or two blends and then disappear. I mean, we have 8 full production blends. I think now the timing is better to go back out there with a lot more to offer, and also a lot more, you know, proven in the industry of not, you know, a one-hit wonder or something like that. So I think the timing. So definitely, you know, it'll be on the radar for next year to start working out west, because it is the last segment of where I really need to concentrate.
So, like, I want to just reiterate to people, if they're trying to come on now, Bob Dog is having some problems coming back on. I think I may have hit the wrong button, Bob Dog, so I apologize for that, because Bob Dog is good stuff, and I didn't mean to do that. If I accidentally made it so he can't come back on, we're going to try and fix that. If it's still a problem, Bob Dog, you can send me a question through the Herf, and we'll just try to sort you out to get back on. I'll be working on that during the show. Also, people going on the SigFed page, I put a link up on the chat. You can click on the link to jump on, or you can go to the virtual event Herf page and click on the link there. We just had a question which Fred was talking about, and about where his travels have taken him and if he's going to the West Coast or not. Another question I had is, you were talking about before kind of working on multiple blends at one time. So are you always sort of working on your next project, or do you sort of, you know, now that you've had so many this year, being the Esteli, the Lot 8613 plus the therapy, are you sort of taking a break? Are you working on new stuff? How's that going?
No, you're always working on something new. I mean, and I don't know, in retrospect, I don't know that I would have front loaded the year as much. It just worked out that way. I had 2 projects that I really wanted to get out there, the 8613 and therapy. So I had some other stuff that I was playing with that was actually looking at releasing this year, but I decided that I wanted it to lay down longer. So next year I'm probably going to, you know, try to span it out, a little bit more. But, you know, I mean, it was still, at the end of the day, it was still 4 blends in 1 year. So on a company my size, that's still pretty ambitious. I mean, it took us from 5 to 9 blends or you know, whatever it was. So I think that was, you know, it was front loaded to the year, but it was about as ambitious as I think I could handle. And you know, you're constantly working on new things, and you know, that one just came together because of the tray. So it ended up with 3 simultaneous releases that all became part of the therapy series. And next year, I don't think it'll be quite like that.
Excuse me. So you were saying before that you're going back to Nicaragua for about 7 weeks. Do you tend to break up your time in chunks like that, or does it just depend when events fall? Like, how do you schedule all that going back and forth?
I like to have the predominant time towards the end of the year. I think particularly given as much time as I had on the road this year. I mean, there was one chunk right around IPCPR that I was literally on the road like 37 days or something like that in a row. And you're close to getting burned out on it a little bit. So I actually really like going down right before Thanksgiving, staying through the new year. It's very mellow down there at that time. There's not a lot of people traveling down there at that time, with the exception of some expats and stuff, but that's really not an issue in Esteli as much. So it's a good time to work on some blends and really get those projects going and get some blends done, and then lay them all down and go, okay, is this going to be able to come out in late 2016 in this case, or 2017? Also, you know, it's a big block of time to just go play with tobacco that you're not even sure if you're going to use or not. You know, last year it was a lot of San Andreas and stuff that I started playing with that is coming to fruition. So it's just, you know, and then you usually have, you know, several trips during the year. But I enjoy it. I think it's good for my marriage because I'm gone so much that, you know, my wife and I go down there and we get, you know, an actual 7-8 weeks of just hanging out down there. So we'll be in Granada for a month. We'll be in San Juan del Sur for a little while, and of course we'll be in Esteli doing some. And then I'll probably stay for Puro Sabor down there, their festival that they've been doing and getting better and better every year. So I'll hang out for that. So you know, it's predominantly you know, it's a good blend between work and play. But I think for me now, even more than other years, given how much time went into the company this year and how much time I was on the road, for me right now, it's a much needed break. But I'm sure after about 2 weeks of sitting on the beach, you know, I'm going to be stir crazy again.
I think you have to worry when you're talking about it's good for your marriage to have such time away. I think when your wife starts sending you on trips, like, don't you have to promote your cigars somewhere, or aren't you missing an event?
No,
you know, maybe worry then.
No, I don't have to worry about that. My wife, you know, my wife's my best friend. I got lucky. She's super supportive. I'd love to have her on the road all the time with me, but realistically, she runs the marketing company that I haven't been involved with as much since the cigar. Certainly only part-time. So she'd like to come out a little bit more, but you know, it's a hectic schedule. It obviously impacts her and what she's able to do to come out. But you know, she'd be happy if we just moved down to Nicaragua or DR and just I just flew out of there for everything.
Yeah. Well, I have a beats winter in Wisconsin, probably. I'll tell you that.
You know what? I love Wisconsin. I was just up there recently, did a big festival up there and did a bunch of events, and it's starting to get cold again. And I love Wisconsin, but and I love the changing of the seasons. I love the snow. But you know, you can literally be into April on Easter Sunday and still get some snow. And so when you can have 5-6 months of just winter, I'm an outdoors person from the standpoint that I like, you know, kayaking or rafting, or I love golf. I try to golf quite a bit. So ride motorcycles, and that's just, you know, the winter schedule doesn't quite fit in with what I like to do recreationally.
Oh no, I hear that it's a bit winters in Wisconsin and winters in Australia. I'll tell you that.
I can imagine.
So the other question that we had come through on the chat, and I think this is a really interesting question that I appreciate people asking that I haven't thought of. But someone asked the question, like, how many people are involved with Nomad? And I think what the question's getting at is, like, you know, we talk a lot about cigar maker, or the blend, you know, the people, the cigar makers like you and Matt Booth and, you know, John Huber, stuff like that. And I think people want to get an idea of, you know, from an idea you have a cigar and blending, like, what's that process like what people are involved in that, you know, how does it work with the factory? Can you tell us a little bit about that, about, you know, the process and the relationships you have?
Yeah, I think everybody's a little different, you know, and how they handle that. You know, there are some people out there that they're very hands off, that they go down to the factory gives them a couple cigars, they try them and say, okay, I like this one, and they put their band on it, and there you go, there's their next cigar. I think the ones that are doing really good things, and certainly the ones that you just mentioned, Matt and John Huber, you know, they're very hands-on in the process. For myself, you know, I need to be involved in it. I need to learn it, because you can't make a decision on what tobacco or what flavor profile unless you get fairly intimate with knowing it. So for me, I mean, in the beginning, it was a lot, the relationship was a lot of, okay, here's kind of what I like flavor-wise. How can we accomplish this? They blend the cigar with the tobaccos that, you know, you're familiar with. When I first went down there to Nicaragua, basically every tobacco I could get my hands on, I would smoke just that tobacco and try to make notes and understand the flavors and go, okay, well, what happens if I mix it with this one or something like that? And so it's really, I created an event this year that I have few more seminars I'll do next year on it, but I called it Hacking the Blend. and it was based on the 8613. And what I wanted to do was share that experience of how I blend a cigar. And I didn't want to name it something super pretentious because I'm still learning. You know, I'm learning every day I'm down there. And so what I did is that, you know, I kind of take the 8613, and what I brought back with me was I brought 3 small cigars without wrappers, and one of them is only Jalapa tobacco, one of them's only Condega Ligero, and one of them's only Ometepe, which are the 3 tobaccos that are in the 8613 filler. And we smoke each of them individually, you know, understand the flavors. And then we talk about, well, what will this taste like with this flavor? And what, you know, what if we add this flavor to it? And that came about because I remember, you know, at one point, you know, a retailer says, oh, I'd never be able to blend. I'd never be able to blend a cigar. And I said, well, I think you could if you got really, really familiar with the flavors, because it's a lot like cooking. And I said, well, you know, have you had cornflakes? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, well, have you had a raw onion? And he says, yeah. And I said, well, I don't need to make a bowl full of raw onions and cornflakes for you to have an idea what it's going to taste like. So I called it, I called it hacking the blend, because I'm like, it's just playing. I'm hacking my way through it. I'm like, well, I wonder what this will taste like with this, and I wonder what it'll taste like this. So basically, when I'm blending, I have an idea of my mind now that I'm familiar, you know, more familiar with the tobacco, saying, okay, I think if I put these together like this, so I think everything in half leaves. So I go, okay, you know, I'm at the table and go, okay, give me a half leaf of this, half leaf of this, half leaf of this, full leaf of this, half leaf of this. Let's put it all together. Let's put a neutral binder on it, no wrapper, and let's just smoke it right there. And then usually, invariably, on the first one, I'm like, okay, well, that didn't work out. Take that out, add this, try this, try this. And I'm hacking my way through it until I get the flavor profile that I'm looking for. And then I usually have 5 different variations of that. I roll 100 of each of them. I leave some down in whatever factory I'm working with, and I bring back another 50 with me, and I put them in my towers. And then after about 45 days, I start smoking them and go, okay, did they marry the way I thought? Are they starting to age the way I thought? And then you usually have 1 or 2 right out of the gate. You're like, oh, I like it, but it's not the portfolio. I'd have to tweak it. It's not exactly what I'm going for. So you hope at the end of that process, you know, when I get very, very close, or if I get stuck on something, then I've got a lot of people in the industry that have, you know, very good palates, outstanding blenders that I can share it with and go, hey, here's something I'm working on. I'd love to get your opinion. The really good people will actually come back and go, well, you know, what are you going for? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to accomplish this, this, and this. And then they'll come back and go, you know what? You know, maybe try, you know, instead of going for 5-year-old tobacco on this particular leaf, drop down to 4 and change the priming on it or something like that. So basically, you know, all things I'm still learning, but I can, you know, kind of go to those people and just kind of tweak my way through it a little bit. But usually when I get other input like that, other than at the factory level, I'm pretty far in the process. But I'm just kind of, you know, just if you have the time, just keep playing with the tobacco over and over again and see what it becomes. And then you're either happy with it or you start over.
So in saying that, how have the hacking the blends, how have they gone? Like, how have you found the reception to those?
Oh, they've been really good. I mean, what happened was I was actually in January, I was concentrating on Texas, and a gentleman named Ron runs Serious Cigars. And he actually asked me, he says, look, you know, I'm going to bring him in. You know, I heard the name. He says, but he asked me point blank, he says, you know, what makes you different than another white guy with a cigar? You know, and I'm like, and it was just, I was kind of floored by the question. It was the best question I got all year, really, from a retailer, because there are guys that go down there and they have the money and the factory gives them a stick. They light it up. They like it. They go, great, put my band on it. I'm in business. And so I needed something for people in the industry, not just the retailers, but also the consumers, to go, you know what? I am down there for a long time. I am down there over 2 months out of the year, you know, in Nicaragua alone. I am in the DR. You know, I do go to the fields. I do try to smoke all the tobaccos and try them. Even if I'm not using that tobacco, I need to learn from it. So I needed something that I could do. And as opposed to an event where you go in an event and you give a guy a cigar and you get 30 seconds to talk to him, then he's off, you know, in the distance. It gives me an hour and a half, you know, hour and 20, hour and a half to actually walk people through a process that's very unique, that they don't have a chance to, you know, smoke straight, you know, Condega Ligero or straight Ometepe. And they also, so they get to learn the process of blending a cigar from my perspective and how I do it. And then they learn more about the company. So they've been absolute home runs as far as that's concerned. They've really, really introduced people to the brand. Everybody gets something out of it. I answer any question. So, I mean, you asked me about, running a company, you asked me about the FDA, you asked me about my opinion on Cuban cigars, whatever it may be. I have no problem sharing that. I've done that from day one because I'm just damn lucky to get to sit at the table with some of these people that I think are amazing blenders and putting out amazing cigars. And I'm honored that I can, give them a cigar and they'll give me feedback. So, but now that I'm there, I also feel, my philosophy has always been is that, if a guy and I said this on day one and I believe it today, a guy walks into a humidor and he buys 3 cigars and that's his budget for 2 weeks. And one of those cigars is a Nomad, that means something to me. I mean, a lot of the big guys like, oh, that doesn't do anything. That's not a lot of sales. Like, that guy spent 1/3 of his budget on my cigar. He entrusted in me to deliver a quality product. And as long as he got the blend, picked out the Nomad that's in his wheelhouse profile-wise, my job is to make sure that I'm using the best tobacco I can get, that I'm not rushing any processes, that I'm not cutting any corners, that it's quality construction, and that he gets a good experience out of it. I was a cigar geek long before I was ever, making cigars. I don't like the word cigar aficionado because I think it's snobby. So I've been, I talked to a guy recently and he gave me the term cigar aficionado, which I think is great. I'm enthusiastic. I love trying other cigars. And I'm just honored that I could be there. And I truly appreciate when someone gives me a chance because I know there's a lot of good choices. And I've done everything I can to not let anybody down in that process. And I think by doing that, I didn't do it for the money. You have to love the product. You have to love the process. And I think over time, I've proven that strategy has worked out very well.
No, it's great. And I think it's that focus on, on the experience. Like I'm having the Esteli lot 8. I make sure I say the right numbers in the right order. 8613.
8613. Yeah, and 86 is
yes.
the longitude, and 13 is the latitude of Esteli. That's how I came up with it.
Yes. No, and like you're saying, the construction, the burn and draw, the flavor, it's just a tremendous cigar. Great body, good experience.
Thank you.
And now Bob Dog, who I accidentally banned from the hangout, which I tried to have it so I could fix him being on mute and accidentally banned him, and we haven't been able to get him back on. But he has sent me some questions. He's watching via Cigar Federation, so I'm going to go through his questions here. And one of them sort of touches on something you're very familiar with. Now, he talks about Periscope and your thoughts on that. I want to broaden it out, too, to your thoughts on the role that social media plays in promoting the blend, connecting with cigar enthusiasts, Periscope and other forms.
Yeah, I mean, just social media in general. Nomad would not have been on the map without social media. Obviously it's grown now, brick and mortars to the point where, like I said, we're almost 300 stores. We're right around 300. So, but if it wasn't for social media, if it wasn't the ability to do shows like this, I was the first company to put my Twitter handle, my personal Twitter handle, on the outside of the band. And so people engage with conversations there. People send me an email. I respond to it. I respond to tweets. It's getting a little harder because the volume has gotten pretty substantially high now. I'll get off this call and I'll probably see, 20, 30 different things tagged on Twitter or whatever to take a look at. And I try to get through them if I can. But social media has allowed us to connect as smokers. There's a lot of smokers that, for a lot of reasons aren't in a brick and mortar. They don't have the time. They've got kids, they've got whatever, their moment of cigar zen is hitting the back deck and having a cigar, but they don't have to be disconnected from the rest of the world. The cigar smoking environment, and the story I always tell is that, you have a spouse, and so you'll go to a brick and mortar and you'll hang out there, and maybe you're there on a regular basis, and you'll go home and you'll have been there for 6 hours, and your significant other go, what'd you talk about? I'm like, nothing. We go there, we solve the world's problems, and we go home. Well, how's Paul's, daughter? I don't know, didn't come up. So, it's a very, to us, it's that just chill and relax. And a lot of times you'll have, someone that makes $1 bazillion next to somebody that doesn't make hardly anything. You've got different people, different political views. You've got different, backgrounds. And in that environment, we're all equal. And I think social media has done a wonderful job allowing us to connect with other smokers. Cigar Federation's done a phenomenal job with that. Like I said, shows like this, social media, Twitter. Periscope's interesting. Periscope is basically a video platform that's live. I actually tested it out. I did a trip to Wisconsin and Texas. I was out for 2 weeks, and I jumped on that and did some of those. It's interesting because it's got a lot of noise. People are chatting and they're talking, and you're doing a live thing. I think it's a fun thing to do to catch people, like, hey, here I am live here. Maybe I'll do it tonight if I think about it. If there's a signal in, big smoke, maybe I'll fire up Periscope tonight and just show everybody what it looks like. It's definitely great for something live going on. Whether I want to go all in on another whole new platform, I don't know. I mean, you can only do so many platforms and keep up with the conversation. It's more important for me to engage and keep up with that conversation in a genuine manner than it is to worry about being on 700 different platforms. But I answer your question, which ended up being a very long answer. I think it was instrumental in bringing the industry together, and I think it was absolutely instrumental in launching Nomad.
Thanks for that. I'm just going to try and get through some questions here, a bit rapid fire, so people
go. We're on the shot clock.
And they're going to be quite random. First off, Bob Dog said that he liked seeing you in Milwaukee, and that he's pairing the Maduro with a bourbon, which is going quite nice. And wanted to know with the therapies.
Give me feedback. I'd like to know feedback. I'm always interested in knowing the pairing. So make sure, Bob, make sure you email me and tell me what you thought it went well with or didn't go well with.
Yeah, tell him what bourbon is you're drinking, because he said very well with the bourbon. And he wanted to know as well, if I can find it. Oh, here we go. Are you going to produce the Therapy Maduro and any other Vitolas? And I guess that goes with the rest of the Therapy line as well.
I don't have any plans right now. I'm trying to figure out what showcases the cigars. That line is kind of locked in a little bit because of the tray and everything else. I do have another project that coming up that will have, a little bit more variation in sizes, but I'm trying to, that line's a little bit blocked in there, that if I was to release something else or release another size in there, maybe as an LE or an event cigar. Certainly the Maduro's got so much play and so much sales that it might be kind of fun to put out some sort of limited edition or an event stick or something like that, or hit the guys up at SigFed and say, hey, look, here's a SigFed only, size of that Pennsylvania broadleaf would be kind of fun. But from a mass production standpoint, the advantage of the tray is that it's a one-stop shop for there. The disadvantage is to add other sizes becomes a challenge. Now I got to put it in boxes, or I got to do a tray swap or something like that. So I think it'll be a little challenging to do that on that line.
Another question that's through the chat. I think that are watching online. Wanted to know if you have any volleyball tips. Any volleyball tips, Fred?
Wow. Don't get hit in the nose. That's all I can tell you. I used to play with a guy that was actually Tom Cruise's stunt double in Top Gun. I played with him a little bit, and which is funny because the guy's like 6'3". So all the scenes you see from far away were him playing. That's how far back, how old I am, by the way. That's when I played volleyball. And so all the scenes that are far away are him. All the ones that are up close are Tom Cruise jumping off a chair. But he's the only one that got me really good. As I went up for a block and I didn't close up my hands. He just nailed me right in the nose, went flat on my back. So that's about, you have to sacrifice the body. That's the best volleyball tip I can give you. You just got to sacrifice the body.
Did you play at Bay? Because you went to Bay, is that right? You went to Whitefish Bay?
I did not. No, I was a kid when I was in Wisconsin, so I did not play there. I played in California. I played California. I played for junior college there, and then I also played beach volleyball up and down the coast for various tournaments there. So I did not play. I did not play there.
Well, Well, this is great. Talk cigars, talk volleyball, fireside chat.
Yeah, I don't know where the volleyball thing
all.
came from. That's wild. I don't know where that came from.
I'm just glad it made sense. I just read them, Fred. I don't know what. Maybe it's a viewer that played volleyball against you at the beach, and got schooled.
Yeah, I didn't start till after high school, and I was honestly just good enough to get to play with the really good guys and get my ass kicked. But I've got my ass kicked by some of the best people in the world, so I got that going for me.
That should be the title of your autobiography.
Good enough to get my ass kicked.
There you go. There's another question here. It's more of a tobacco related.
Okay.
And it's, do you prefer Condega Ligero over Esteli Ligero? And I guess to broaden that out too, if you could talk about some of the differences in the different growing regions as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it's funny, and we talk about this in the seminar. Everybody's palate's a little bit different, so what I taste and what other people taste are different. I'm not one of those people that have that palate that I'm like, I got boysenberries from the south part of the hill, and I got 80% chocolate but not 70% chocolate. I just don't have that palate. I've got the 6 major sensives, sweet, sour, salty, umami, all those things. So for me, I mean, for what I get out of it flavor-wise is that I find Condega for me has a little bit more of the sweetness to it versus an Esteli. And I also find Esteli to be a lot stronger. And I don't have a preference. It really just depends on what I'm blending and what's going to be the right fit. In the 8613, which you're smoking tonight, we ended up with Condega. I didn't want the Esteli Ligero to overpower the rest of the blends. I was trying to have that delicate balancing act between the Jalapa, Condega, and Ometepe, and Condega being the Ligero that I chose. So you've got this balancing act that it was overpowering when I was playing with the Esteli in there. And you do play with both of them. You do interchange them. In the 276, the C276, there's actually both Ligeros in that. There's Condega and Esteli in there. Because they have different things. So there's a half leaf of each. So it really just depends on what you're playing for and what you're trying to accomplish. But I like them both. It's like saying, do you like apples and oranges? It's like, well, what are you in the mood for, and what are you trying to accomplish? So they're both great tobaccos. They're both great in their own right.
When you're blending a cigar, and this is sort of touching on what you're talking about, like using different tobaccos for different things. Like, I guess what's the most challenging balance, like in terms of, is it trying to get the right flavors and still have the cigar burn well? Is it trying to balance strength and body? Like what for you is sort of the most challenging, I guess, balance to get right when you're doing a blend?
So where I am developmentally right now is that I'm pretty good at the flavor aspect of it. I don't blend for strength or mild sake. I play with the tobaccos. I focus completely on flavor initially, and then I look at, do I want it a little bit stronger? Do I want it a little bit milder? But I really try to say, okay, if I'm going to put these tobaccos together, my job as a blender is to, how can I put them together that best showcases all of them? So, I heard a comment the other day that someone else made, and I wish I could credit them. I don't know if it was Steve Saka on his Facebook, and I apologize if it was somebody else, but it was a very good comment that they made that basically anybody can blend a super strong cigar because it hides a lot of defects of a blend. Because, but it's very difficult to get into more of a medium or mild cigar because you're not hiding it. If it's strong for strong's sake and you pack it full of Ligero, if you screwed up on the blend or you didn't have a delicate balance, you lose it because of the strength. It's very hard to just take something and go for all-out flavor and complexity. The C276, I took it as strong as I could before I started to lose some of the subtle nuances because there's 5 different tobaccos in the filler. So I did that until, played up the Ligeros until I started to lose those flavors. So my job is to put them all together and have them all showcase each other, all complement each other, if you will. And I know that sounds really weird, but that's the way I blend. So to answer your question on the other side of that, the most challenging thing for me that I've played with recently is aroma. You know, it's easy to get very focused on that, but aroma has a factor to it. And now that I've really been trying to learn more about that, a lot of cigars that I have, I mean, they may smell good, but there's only some that I just think blenders that are out there that can actually blend cigars that have an amazing aroma. Eladio at Davidoff, I think, has the ability to do that. There's a lot of cigars that I've had of his that he's created that actually have never been in production for one reason or another. And that guy just has it nailed on aroma. And I think there are a few people out there that can do that, but that's a very, very difficult thing to blend for. And obviously you don't want to blend, you don't want to put aroma ahead of flavor and everything because you're smoking it, but it is a factor. To me, construction and things like that, that's a given. It better burn right. It better not have tunneling issues or canoe issues or something like that. Sure, it's going to happen occasionally. Occasionally you're going to get a stem. I mean, you know, I get a kick out of people that all of a sudden launch into a manufacturer that, you know, oh my God, there was a stem in here. This is the worst product ever. You know what? It touches 100 hands. It's going to happen. But, you know, it should never be the norm. And I'm thankful that, you know, I do concentrate on construction and quality control and that I know that my level of someone getting a cigar that doesn't burn right is much lower than a lot of companies out there, or certainly well within any industry standards of what's acceptable. But to me, that's a given. You should have a good burning cigar. You shouldn't buy a box and 5 of them are bad. You know, you should have one bad cigar out of, you know, 80 or 100 that has an issue. And I'm not talking about the, you know, retouching the end of it or something like that. Some people I think are a little overboard on that. If you got to pull out your lighter halfway through and touch something up, that's not a big deal, particularly if you're outside, it's a windy environment, whatever it may be. But for the most part, I blend everything to flavor. Construction's a given. It better be good. You know, I guess that's the answer.
No, it's great. I mean, I just think it's really interesting to hear about blending and those balances, because I think a lot of people, it gets into the craftsmanship of what you're trying to do. And when we go into a shop or order them online or whatever, sometimes I think you can see the cigar in a bit of a vacuum and you forget like the sort of the process that goes into it. So it's good to hear that.
It's a lot of work. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. And when I first started, it was just like, okay, I want that tobacco. And then now it's just like, every time I get an answer, I've got 3 more questions. Like, well, what happens if that tobacco is 4 years old instead of 3-year-olds? Or what happens if it was fermented at a lower temperature versus a higher temperature, so it took a little bit longer to ferment, you know, or to age? So, you know, it's all, you end up with more and more variables, but you're trying to accomplish this delicate balance of how can I put together something that complements each other and have a great experience for the cigar smoker.
We got a couple more questions as we sort of finish up. One thing is a follow-up from Bob Dog, who's talking about the pairing. So what he's pairing it with, for people out there, it's the Therapy Maduro, and other people could try this. You can even give this a shot, Fred. So he's got the Therapy Maduro with a Kirkland small batch bourbon.
Okay.
He says it's got the caramel and citrus notes with a spicy and smoky finish, 103 proof.
Oof. Okay. All right.
So
I'll check it out.
Bob Dog likes his bourbon strong, it sounds like.
That is, yeah, that's usually above where I go proof wise too. So, but I'm going to try it.
Yeah, give it a go. Thanks, Bob Dog. And we got another great question on the chat from Harley. This is really interesting, and I'm really interested to hear what you say. Is if you could go back in time, the Fred now, after, you know, having, you know, getting the line out there and portfolio, if you're to go back to the Fred when he first walked into the factory and said, I want to do this Nomad thing, like, what would that discussion be like? Like, what advice would you have? What are some of the major things you've learned if you had to look back at the Fred that first came in?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm not sure how to answer that. That's a really, really good question. And I'm not trying to dodge the question. I'm really just trying to think of, you know, I think, you know, in the beginning, it's different because, you know, you don't even know if you're going to have a company in a year. When you first start out, you just don't know if anybody's going to like it. You don't know if you're going to learn enough. You don't know if people are going to buy it. You know, I mean, so the decisions you make then on blends or how long you're working on something is a little different than knowing down the line. I think it's more like, you know, this year where I had 4 blends come out early in the year. I would have liked to have spaced it out a little bit more. I think not from a factory level. I think I would have spent more time on the road initially, I would have went back to myself and said, look, you should spend more time on the road in the beginning, because I played catch up, late last year and this year, trying to catch up to supporters and stores that already had it. But it's a great question, and actually, it's a great question I'm going to want to think about going forward, because it kind of keeps things in line of what I should be working for. But I think I'd have spent more time on the road. But I'd already been smoking cigars for 12, 13 years, so it wasn't like I wasn't already in it from an experiencing it standpoint. From the factory level, I approached it. I don't want to say that I did everything right, but I approached it from a check the ego at the door, go down there, learn all you can. So I'm not one of those guys that, pretend, because just because you've been smoking cigars for 12, 13 years doesn't mean jack when you're talking about blending one. So I was pretty open and pretty open wound available from the very beginning. So I don't have those regrets going back in there. I probably would have spent a little bit better time on the boxing. I probably would have spent some more time on the labels as far as what the bands looked like. I think I kind of threw those together a little bit initially. So I probably would tell myself to, you spend a little bit more time on the presentation, and, obviously not sacrifice time on the tobacco, but spend more time on what the presentation is going to look like.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a great question. It's interesting too, because it's sort of like, the Fred you are now is a lot due to the learning experiences you had then. So it's probably hard to even, separate.
It is, but it's a question that it's a question that I would say to ask people that you interview that are way smarter than me, which is pretty much everybody in this industry. I'd be curious their answers, though. I mean, look, I'm a cigar geek. I would love to hear how some of those guys that have been around a lot longer than me would answer that question, because it's a very interesting question.
So we got about 5 minutes or so left, and I just want to thank you, Fred, for giving us the time. I guess the last thing is just at the Big Smoke. Any stories, any interesting, run-ins, any funny story you can share? Anything fun Vegas-wise?
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So you guys have to come here for me to share that. I can't pass that on. I can't Instagram, Periscope, Twitter that stuff. So it's a lot of fun. It's a neat event. It's nice to hang out with people. But if whatever multi-vendor event you can go into, whether it's CA or something more local to where you live, it's a neat experience to actually get some face time with the people behind the cigars. Whether they do an event in your shop and you actually have the guy that makes the cigars, but anytime that you have a chance to talk shop or to meet the people that make the cigars and ask them questions, I highly recommend it.
I'm just taking a look to see if anyone has any last-minute questions here for Fred. I guess to close out on then, for people out there that maybe are watching this and they're just getting introduced to your cigars, can you just tell people, how to find you online, how to, on Twitter and stuff, give them the address to the website?
Yeah, the Twitter handle for me is @Godfather, which is @GODFADR, because spelling it out correctly would have been horribly pretentious. And if you go to nomadcigarcompany.com, and I think there's a tab at the top that says e-letters or something like that, definitely get on the email list. We have a lot of fun with that. I do a lot of contests where I give away a lot of, cigars or cutters or whatever like that. I just enjoy that part of the industry. I send out e-letters that are very little bit about Nomad, and it will give you a lot of insight to my sense of humor and what I do. But I'm just, that's who I am, and that's what it's going to be. But the e-letters have grown tremendously. We call it the NRC, the Nomad ruling class. So they go out about once or twice a month, but they're entertaining. We try to have a good time with them and try to have some fun contests along the way. I think there's a contest. Actually, we got another couple days of a contest on the site. I really like guys that are into craft things, products they create. And Luke at Humble Design Works, he sent me some cigar rests that they weigh. They're really heavy. They're gorgeous. You can see it on the site. But if you go to nomadcigarcompany.com and click on contests, you can get in on that contest. I'm giving away one when I get back home on Thursday or Friday. I'm going to give one away. Really, really neat little cigar rest to have for you to keep at the house. You're probably not going to carry it around to the store, but really cool one to put on your patio or whatever like that. It's a copper patina, whatever. It's got the little Nomad logo at the top of it. But I'm giving one away. I think he sells them for like 70 or 90 bucks. So definitely check that out and get on that list. And once you're in one of the contests and you sign up for the email list, you're on the e-letter list.
Oh, well, great. And I can vouch for it. Fred is one of the best follows on Twitter, so you got to check him out. Great thoughts. Very funny. Good stuff. So be sure to check him out there. And thanks, Fred. Thanks for the time. Thanks for everything. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your. You got a big lineup tonight, then, when you go back. I'm
heading back over to the Mirage and smoke cigars, eat steak sandwiches, and Davidoff just opened up their new lounge. There's a big after party there tonight, so we'll probably head over there, and it'll be another late night, and we'll grind through it. We'll do the best we can.
Well, enjoy the fire. Have a bit of time to relax, and thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show.